Good morning.
All right, I have 9:01 and all the commissioners are present and accounted for along with our staff. So I'll just welcome everyone and say good morning to a special meeting for the North Dakota Ethics Commission here on this Monday morning, August 18th. We have a rather full agenda for the special meeting. And let's start with review and approval of the minutes of June 3rd and June 25.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Commission's June 3rd, 2025 special meeting and June 25th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion. Any discussion? And we can do this by voice, right, Rebecca?
Yes.
So all in favor of approving the minutes of June 3rd and June 25th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, there's consensus. Moving on, annual report.
Right. I believe that is me, Cindy.
Yep.
Okay, so give me just a second. I'm gonna pull up and I'm gonna share my screen. I did not send this out to the commission ahead of time. The platform that I am using is not entirely conducive to doing that. But you should see it now. So I'm going to send a copy of this out to the commission today so that you have, this is rough. It's a rough draft. I would say it's not super rough, but what we are missing is because we had our operations administrator, Miss Moose, she just started in the last 2 weeks. So we are doing training on financials and the budget and things, as well as complaint numbers. So we haven't wanted to overwhelm her with getting that up-to-date information. So that is what is missing in this report. We'll get to those pages about halfway through. So what we have and what I want to talk to the commission about specifically is the dates of this report. So this is an annual report per statute that has to be done, but this is the first one that the commission has done. We've provided other reports to the legislature specifically, as well as to the executive branch, but it's never been done in the pursuant to a statutory requirement in the same sense. So one of the things that you will notice throughout the report today that I have for you is that the dates are all encompassing, meaning that it's a lot of the dates and a lot of the data flow from the inception of the commission through June 30th of 2025. If the commission wants me to change that and just do June 30th of 2024, or excuse me, July 1st of 2024 to June 30th of 2025, I can certainly do that. I just thought that this was a good way to capture kind of the last few years of data. So we will start out, we have our cover page. I'm seeing it's lagging just a little bit online. I apologize. It goes to an opening message. Now, Cindy, you will see I drafted this, but in other annual reports, it typically comes from the chair. So you will see that I put your signature on it. I don't want you to think I'm putting words in your mouth. I would like you to review this and see if there are things that you would like to change or modify. But please don't think I'm overreaching in that regard, but just that I did point out some of the highlights and kind of where we are to date. And Cindy, you and I can review that before the final report goes out on August 29th. So really what it does is it highlights really things just from that last year in this section and what the commission has been working on and where it started and where it has come. I do make a note in this opening message that in an effort, since this is the first annual report, in an effort to provide comprehensive information to North Dakotans, the data contained within the report is from inception to June 30th, unless it is otherwise noted in the report. So if we we have a very brief table of contents, which outlines the kind of points we talked about during the last regular meeting. We do a brief history. We have an introduction of the members of the commission. We do have a fiscal report. This is going to be very similar to what we provide the legislature from a financial standpoint. We're also just getting, we're just finalizing these numbers. I think we did it last week for what our turnback was. So when it comes to doing an annual report in the future, that is always going to be a quick turnaround. It might be something to consider pushing this out an extra 30 days or 15 days just to allow that fiscal information to come in a little bit more timely. The operational highlights are going to be the meat and potatoes of this report. We do touch on education, training, and legislative recommendations is where I really would like the commission to provide feedback today. Because what I included were things that I had notes of that the commission has talked about over the last year or 2 years of ideas for the legislature that are potentially outside the scope of the commission's jurisdiction. So there's a brief history of the North Dakota Supreme Court the North Dakota Ethics Commission. For those who have not been watching the meetings for the last 6 years. Then there is an introduction into this members and staff. So one of the things that an annual report does is it is supposed to educate individuals who are reading it. So it also does 2 things. It provides data, but it also educates on processes and procedures. So you'll see here, specifically when we talk about members and staff, before we even talk about who the members are of the commission, we talk about what the Constitution requires of the commissioners, how they are appointed, who they can be, and that is according to the Constitution. So that information is included for educational purposes. So then we have everybody listed with when they were appointed, reappointed, and when their terms expire. They are in order of when appointment happened. And then we do have just staff noted. That was something that other ethics commissions do. The financial report, this is an example. Please do not, these numbers are not accurate. I lifted this from New Mexico's just to give us an idea of what this will ultimately look like. But basically it will walk through what we walked through with the legislature, what our budget was, what our actual costs were, what our turnback was, and if there were any audit findings. So to date, we have had no audit findings. There will be a qualitative discussion that flows from here of this financial overview, but this is the information that we don't have or we really got very late last week. So I did not push to get this done today, this portion of it, but overall you can see this is what the outline of this will look like. I have a note in there that we haven't had any audit findings, and so that will be included in that financial overview.
Good question, Rebecca.
Yep.
Will that financial overview cover since our inception, since we began?
So Cindy, that's one of the questions I think I have for the commission today is, do you want me to cover, we could go back and certainly make a graph of what the appropriation has been for the commission from 2019 to 2021 to 2023 to 2025. And then we can provide more detailed information on the current biennium, or I should say the last biennium, not the current biennium. We could certainly do that, Cindy, or I can just focus on the past biennium. I would like direction, I guess, from the commission on that. But I could do either one. We have the historical information.
I think it's important that it's in here, because then it's official documentation of appropriations, and I'd also like to see the number of FTEs. But other commissioners, any comments?
None by me.
Can you go back up to the commissioners?
Yep, did I make a mistake?
Was that Murray?
Yeah, if this is a historical document, suggest that the prior commissioners also be listed with their terms.
Yes, I agree. I noted that too, Murray.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll include previous chairs then too.
Yeah.
Well, not only previous chairs, but probably all of the people that would be listed would be previous chairs, Paul and Dave. And
then,
who
Ron,
else?
I'd make that note for you as well.
Oh, as a previous chair? Well,
Yes.
that's very important.
So Cindy, I'm just going to make sure I'm understanding this right for my notes, that we'll do the appropriation per biennium since it was initially done, which was back in 2019, and then we'll include the FTEs. And then we will do a more detailed expenditure versus appropriation for the last biennium. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good information. And I don't think this type of the annual report doesn't need the detail because people could ask us for that, but somehow a summary of expenditures on an annual basis.
So what we'll probably do it, we have categories, Cindy, that we break it into.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
We'll have our salary line item, our operating line item, and our operating is broken to, I think we can use maybe probably 8 categories that will take care of that. Office expenditures, rent, and then professional fees and services will make up the majority of it. But any other, there is the least amount of information on financials and complaints, which is actually probably the most important part of the report. But just with the turnaround, we didn't have time to get this done. But any other comments, adds, things that the commission would like to see on this portion, the financials? Okay. Hearing none, I will move on to our operational highlights. So when it comes to the operations of the Ethics Commission, we always talk about how what we do goes back to the Constitution. Generally, when we talk about our operations in regard to our legislative testimony or when we're providing updates to the governor's office specifically, we do that through our strategic initiatives and what our strategic plan is. For purposes of this report, I did take a different approach. I didn't do it that way because it's not a great communicator of data. That's really a determination if we're hitting our goals. Where here, this is communicating education information and then also educating data. So I did change the format. So the very first thing that I started out with is our operational highlights. This is the 10,000 foot view of since 2019 through 2025, June 30th of 2025. It talks about what the constitutional directives of the Ethics Commission are. The other thing that we are directed to do, but it is not from the Constitution, it flows from a statutory direction or authority. That is advisory opinions. That makes up a big portion of what the commission does, particularly in 2025. You will see I did update this as of August 29th, 2025. I will probably go back and change that to June 30th. That's inconsistent. It was just when I did this, I anticipated that's what the number would be, but I'm going to go back and change that. And then the last one is education, which the commission has talked about and has always been a big portion of what the commission wants to do to prevent ethical issues. So then education really started, and we don't have data from before 2023. We have some data for the end of 2022, but before 2022, we really don't have any data. So I focused this portion of our data on 2022 moving forward, and you can see the number of trainings and educational sessions that the commission staff has conducted. So I go into that more in depth as well. So the first constitutional directive that the commission has is rules adoption. These are the major ones that have happened to date. And then I note about what is in progress. And so you will see at the bottom of this portion, it talks about what the commission is considering and what those rules do. One of the things that I didn't include on this slide that I can go back and do if the commission wants me to, is there have been a number of times that the rules have been amended, and that has not been, I did not make note of that. The complaint rules, and I believe the conflicts of interest rule, or I think it's the quasi-judicial rule, have been amended at least once, potentially multiple times. I could make note of those amendments in here. I just didn't include it. The slide seemed, or the page seemed kind of full. But if the commission wants those to be included, I absolutely can go back and do that.
I think they should be just a simple, don't want to make more work for you, but just a simple notation like the complaint rule amended in 2022, whatever it is, in parentheses, and just to give the reader an indication that they're not, they're not, that we have been working on those over the years. I think we should do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important markers. And again, having it at least noted in this annual report.
Okay, I will do that.
I've got to say, that'll give Addie something to do. Welcome, Addie.
Thank you. All right, moving on then. Any other comments of things that the commission would like to see changed, updated on the last two pages that I've gone over? Okay, hearing none, I will move to the next page, which is complaint resolution. So one of the complaint resolution, this is where we could get very carried away with data, and maybe that is what we want to do. We may want to include quite a bit of data here. And this is something that Addie was recently trained on again, so we didn't include all of the data here. But I just wanted to give the commission an idea of what we are going for. So again, we called this complaint resolution. That's pursuant to one of those constitutional directives. So for complaint resolution, one of the educational pieces that we feel is very important is that individuals understand that process. We did include that process. I did add the fourth step of the administrative hearing. And so we have that included here. We haven't talked a whole lot about that before, but with the commission just recently completing that, I did include it. And then we have the data. So this is how we presented the data during legislative session. We did it by year with the total complaints received, the summary dismissals, informal resolutions, and pending. So what I would like to do is what I'm going to ask Addie to do as she gets familiar with this master sheet that we track this on, is actually to get a little bit more in depth with not necessarily each of the years, but with how many cases are pending, how many have been, how do I want to say this? Not summarily dismissed, but we'd really like to try and gauge that amount of time, or what is the average amount of time for summary dismissals. What I don't know is if we can get that data, because it is going to be, we don't have a program to do that. It would be good old fashioned calculation at this point, trying to do that before the report needs to be done. But this is how our complaint resolution data currently looks. We will add 2025 through June 30th of 2025 to this once we get this updated. I think Addie worked on this last maybe Thursday or Friday, right? You and Alicia did, right? Yep. So we'll get her on board with that. Any comments, additions on this slide? Hearing none, the next thing that the commission does is advisory opinions. So this is, again, it has that short educational section about what advisory opinions are, how they are issued, what authorizes the commission to do those, and what is the scope of those. I also included the time frame that these are done within 90 days of notifying the requester. The commission will issue an opinion. And so the next 2 pages basically walk through each advisory opinion that was issued and what the commission concluded. These are all of the ones that have been issued through June 30th of 2025. So it doesn't include the ones after June 30th. The last one was 2501. I will take this data and match it on the overview above. Any questions on that one? Our education, oh, sorry, Cindy.
It's been a long while. And just based on some other things that we've been dealing with, is the issue of timing on both complaint resolution and or issuing advisory opinions. And it's probably not relative to this report that we're going to be putting out, but I know that might be a question that people, the public, or somebody's going to say, well, how long does it take you to resolve once a complaint comes in? And then so my point, we say it takes us 90 days. And for me, that's very reasonable, but I don't know. Is it reasonable? And I'm assuming, too, it also depends upon the issue or the topic, right?
So,
Yeah.
Cindy, I believe, oh, go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say 90 days is too short a turnaround, I think. But, like I know the public looks at the unresolved complaints we're going back a page. I know we're going back to unresolved complaints. I know the public looks at 2022 and sees 8 pending complaints. That's a concern. And I know the reason for it, but not everybody does. So
I just want to make a note, this has not been updated since the doctor complaints have been resolved. So all of the 2022 cases have been resolved.
okay.
But this gives you a sense of what it would look like.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the way it looks now, it doesn't, it's kind of misleading.
Yeah.
It has not, I have not updated this. This is something that falls within Addie's job description, and I did not want to say, hey, update that chart a day after you learn how to do it. So we're not going to do that. We'll get this updated though, Ron.
Okay.
So to get to your question about timing, one of the things that we easily could do with this advisory opinion section is put in there when it was requested, when the individual was notified, and then when it was issued. That could be a simple note under each one of these. It would not take that long to add, and then it could demonstrate. I do think that there were 2 of them that went longer than 90 days based upon agreement between the commission and the requester because of the amount of legal research and briefing that was needed. So we could make those notes on there, but the other ones were done within the 90 days.
Have we ever had one where we've done it less than 90?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. And again, there hasn't been that many. you know, I mean, just in the bigger scheme of things and that. And so again, to me, I think the issue of timing on how long it takes us to process complaints and or issue an advisory opinion, I think is going to be of concern to the public in general.
So add the timing when possible.
Yeah. Other commissioners, you okay with that?
I am.
I am.
Another way to simpler to put is there's an average time. I did a calculation of the average time and it's about mid-80s.
For advisory opinions.
Yes.
Okay. And for me, part of, I think, why it's important to note that we're paying attention to this and we do our best to try to move things along in that. But, you know, we only have 2 professional staff. Well, I'm sorry, we have 3 professional staff, you know, but to do this work and to our other issue, our point relative to getting another FTE. And actually we need 2 or 3 more FTEs, but that's something else.
Okay. So get timing in when we can. Cindy, I think we could do that to some extent on the complaint. That's going to just take a lot more time for us to get because we don't have that case management system up and going yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Wait.
See, and that's the other aspect of it. How do we, you know, we're operationalizing this work as a new entity in that. And so we don't have enough staff. We don't have the tech side, but we're building it. We're getting there. And yeah, how do you say that in an annual report in a good way? You know, not, you know. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
And can I write a note quick, Cindy, before I continue?
Yes.
Okay. So we will do that on advisory opinions. Education and outreach, we provided an overview. So our education and outreach, a lot of times we think of as only the events that we host or the trainings that we provide. We did track this. We do track this. So I included this just from 2024. We can move forward. This is where I really want to make sure our timelines are accurate. I pulled this from our legislative testimony. I think we could go forward and do this in June through June 30th of 2025 as well. But we know that we conducted 28 educational or training presentations. And then we reached an estimated 1,000 North Dakota residents. We point out what would we consider probably our most successful educational and training session, which is the Dakota Dilemma webinar series that we did over the lunch hours. And that just kind of some points on those. But we also talked about other ways that we engage with North Dakotans and that we provide education. And that is our quarterly newsletter, as well as through our Facebook page and YouTube. Honestly, we could have provided a lot more here. I can certainly do that, but moving forward with where the commission currently is and not having the ability to do more of this, I just didn't focus on it in the report as much as I did those other data points above. Any additions or comments that we should add here? I will update this through June 30th of 2025. So the big area that I want the commission's input in on, because this is certainly from the commission, the commissioners, these are the ones, the legislative recommendations. I notice I have a spelling error in there, but these are the legislative recommendations that I have notes of that the commission has talked about over its meetings over the past 2 years. Whether it be, I think all of them have been talked about at a public meeting, or I potentially think the first one has happened maybe more internally, but currently I have 4 of them listed. I'm not sure if there is more or if we want to reduce this. Once we have this list solidified, what I plan on doing is including a short description of why we included this. So lobbyist emails are not included or not required to be included when a lobbyist registers. I am hopeful that we could have legislation that requires lobbyists to include their email, because one of the things that we struggle with is a way to contact lobbyists when they have a complaint filed against them if they do not have an email address. That creates a process problem for us. And so having a lobbyist email with their registration, I also don't think that this is very labor intensive. And most lobbyists, I'd say 99% of lobbyists have an email address, but this is a very time consuming thing that we go out and we verify and we check when we do go through our lobbyist registration that we do maintain within our office. So this is something that we've talked about internally, that having an email address included with a lobbyist registration would be extremely helpful. Leasing subject to, that word is supposed to be procurement. Please excuse my late night typing. Leasing subject to procurement. This has been a topic that the commission has brought up. I believe it was our previous chair, Paul Richard, who brought it up multiple times when we were having discussions about this is something that perhaps the commission, not necessarily the commission, but that the legislature should consider. I'm not sure if there are logistical problems with this, but that is something that that I had noted. Candidate expenditure disclosures. This is really a discussion that started last summer. This relates, this is pretty specific candidate expenditure disclosures, but really just campaign disclosure requirements. I could even make this a little bit broader. That is something that the commission has been looking at since its uptick in complaints related to elections that happened. We would have been last summer after the primary. And so that was something that we also included, that we can have a better disclosure requirements if that happens legislatively or a different way, but that's something that potentially could consider. And then the other one that has come up is lobbyist expenditure reports. Those are done, but they typically don't have a whole lot of information included. Sometimes there is very little information included. And so just getting a better report of those has been something that the commission has talked about in the past. I'm guessing that I'm missing something that has been talked about, but this is what I had notes on for the annual report. So I'd love to hear comments. What, you know, this is the commission's report, certainly not mine, but this was just to start the discussion for these 4.
This is more concerning the legislative issue. This is the first time that the report looks into the next biennium, but it doesn't refer to what happened in the prior legislative session. Because this is a report for the prior biennium, should it address legislation in the prior biennium rather than the future biennium? Just a question more than a comment.
Do you mean what happened?
Yes.
Just an outline of what happened?
Yes.
I think that would be good to include.
Because with the legislative recommendations in the future, these are issues that may or may not ever happen. And so do you want to kick the hornet's nest for something that may not happen? Or do you want to just talk about what did happen in the prior biennium? Just a thought. Because when we're talking about candidate expenditure disclosure, there could be a host of options for that. Encouraging the legislation for the Secretary of State's office, encouraging legislation for the Ethics Commission or a rule for the, don't know where we're going, where legislation would go. So my concern, it may be premature to have recommendations for the next biennium, instead address what happened this biennium. That's just a thought.
Okay.
Well, I'm not so sure. I think I understand what you're saying, Murray, but for me, I don't like the title, legislative recommendations. For me, all these subjects or topics that we've got listed here, these topics or issues have come up on a case. And our staff and us, the commission, we found that there's not sufficient guidance or rules or whatever someplace that's led us to start this list. And then we don't feel like it's not the commission's responsibility to address these things. And maybe it's legislative responsibility, but maybe it's Secretary of State, maybe it's whoever, whatever, yeah, who does these things and that. But somehow I think this is an important list because, again, this is based on our work for the last 5-6 years. And so we've been dealing with these things individually and collectively in different ways. And somehow it's like to bring it to light. It's like to make sure people know, or whoever. So legislative body, these things have come up for us. We're not sure what to do with them and we want your help, or Secretary of State or AG or whoever the entity is that should be helping. So like on the procurement one, who's responsible for addressing that? Is it OMB, the state's OMB office? We bring it to their attention that, hey, we think this is an issue or something we've dealt with. And I think maybe we could, besides just giving the list, we could do like, here's how it unfolded for us, or without disclosing names or that, just like, here's what happened to get us why this topic's on our list.
And
I'm not sure I'm explaining this well, but yeah.
So you understand, and so it's really potential ethical issues to be addressed in the future, right? And because we don't have any legislative recommendations yet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Could we-
Yeah, except we've become knowledgeable about this because somehow a variation of it came up in our discussions, or a case or a complaint or investigation, whatever. So yeah, these things need further clarification, I guess. Sorry, and Ward, you were going to say something?
Could we, instead of calling it legislative recommendations, call it legislative issues to be addressed?
Ward, I think we could do, yes, something similar. Can I remove the word legislative? So the actual, let me read the statute that we are required, or that we can do something. It says so 546619 is the Ethics Commission annual report. And it reads that the annual report may include recommendations for new or revised laws, okay, rules, or policies that could improve the confidence of citizens in the government, in North Dakota government. So I think we could phrase this as policy recommendations, just more in a broad sense. And I think that actually gets to Cindy's point, that some of these maybe aren't legislative, some of them may be a policy that needs to be adopted by OMB, et cetera. Some of them may fall in the Ethics Commission's purview. but just that these are issues that we have identified. And so that's what we could call them as policy issues. I mean, we could get creative with what it's actually called, but remove the word legislative, but look forward and base it on what we have observed.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I like getting rid of legislative.
And actually, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, when you hadn't talked and just you brought the slide up, Rebecca, I'm like, legislative recommendations. My mind went to, oh, this is what they're telling us. What we should be doing or working on in that. But I like the idea of dropping legislative and saying either, and maybe not recommendations, but considerations, policy considerations, or something. You can wordsmith it. Yeah.
Could we, commissioners, would you like to include a additional legislative history prior to this policy recommendation? This could even go up in a different portion of the report. It may be more appropriate to put up with the history, the general history. We could give a quick overview of it would be more data driven, but just the bills that have passed that have affected the commission. That could be done early on to get to Marie's point.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Rebecca. Yeah. And then that way we have it all together in one report.
Yep. Do that. So as far as policy considerations then, is there additional things to add to this list? Are there things that should be removed from this list? I in no way want to represent that this is exhaustive, all-encompassing, or that this is something that is important enough that the commission wants to note it.
One concern that I have, and maybe it's policy or legislative, is that the Ethics Commission has been, by statute, directed to conform to the administrative agency's rulemaking process, which doesn't fit the role of in my mind, doesn't fit the role of the Ethics Commission. Because under that rulemaking statute, is it 2832? Agencies are adopting rules to implement laws. And in some respects, the Ethics Commission is adopting rules that become law. Similar to law. And I just think that the existing process doesn't work very well for the purposes of the Ethics Commission.
Marie.
So let me just cite an example.
Okay, finish, and then I'll have a question.
Okay, the commission has proposed travel disclosure rules. And the travel disclosure rules are pretty substantive. It's a substantive issue. And it was published in the local newspapers, and I conducted the hearing. And there was one legislator connected online, and and the governor appeared in person. And to me, a very substantive rule like that should have more debate, dialogue, and conversation. And I'm just that's why I brought that up.
Well, I see what you mean, and I guess what I would say in that is somebody looks at this and they say, really, do I want to spend my time doing that? That looks like a boring discussion. To talk about travel rules, if I look at it, and maybe maybe I'm a person who needs more stimulation than to talk about travel rules. Do you see what I'm saying? I can see why people didn't show up for that, because to me it looks like it's necessary, but it's kind of a boring subject. And I would guess, unless somebody is mandatorily required to attend to something like that, whether it's in person or online, I can see why there wasn't much participation in it.
But I'm just thinking of the legislative process. When a topic is introduced in the legislature in the form of a bill, it is subject to hearings before a committee and then ultimately adopted. And so it's a bill is not an issue in the form of a bill, is debated and knocked around and whatever. And the Confining Administrative Practices Act doesn't really allow for that kind of a process. That's my point. So I'm done. That's all on that issue.
Well, no, and it's a good point though, Maureen, and we've circled around that and back and forth on that. So are you suggesting perhaps that should be on this list?
Whether or not it's on that list, I'd like the commission to talk about it in the future.
Yeah.
We've seen even on significant substantive rules, for instance, the conflicts of interest, there was quite a bit of feedback that the commission got on the quasi-judicial rules. But when it came to the conflicts of interest rule, that significantly dropped. And so I do think that it would be, having more comment is always a better thing. Having a more dialogue. So I think that would be and we could look at how other ethics commissions, I'm looking to Logan, have their rulemaking process. I do think there are more that have more opportunities.
It might be something as simple, like it might not be in the statute, but you may be able to have a meeting where people can have that open discussion, just add an extra step in without it necessarily being required.
Could be a policy.
Could be a policy for us. So Cindy, do you want, and others, should I add it to the list?
I think it's important enough to add to the list. And I hope you don't think that I don't think it's important with my comments, but as I said, I think that unless you've got a requirement that somebody attend not only on this, but other meetings too, people are busy and they're not going to come unless it's required that they come.
I would like to see it on the list.
Yeah, I would too. So I think we have consensus on that. And the other aspect of all this is and I'm not sure, Rebecca, about where it fits in this annual report, but somehow I would like us to make And maybe it is the annual report, and it's not just, remember when we started, we established a mission statement. But and that needs to be emphasized, what we said as that mission, but also articulating as the North Dakota Ethics Commission, what are ethics? Because some of these topics that we keep circling around, from my perspective, keep coming back up because as a North Dakota citizen, I assume people know what a conflict of interest is and how to respond in that. But when you get into some of those details about like travel disclosure, and assuming that, well, there's checks and balances, but there's not. There's no checks and balances. Well, duh, why not? And there should be checks and balances. And I don't think it's our job to set those checks and balances. And yet sometimes that's what this work becomes about. And that's maybe more on the subjective philosophical side, but I think we need to make, since this is our first annual report, I think we need to add another section, Rebecca, sorry to make more work, about what, and we had those earlier conversations, which I think are recorded someplace relative to when we got to our mission statement, but all of our perspectives about what are ethics and ethical behavior for elected officials, lobbyists in that, and what is that expectation? Sorry, I'm digressing.
Cindy, I think I understand what you mean. I just realized I didn't include the mission statement, which certainly should be there. And I can go back and look at what the commission, I wasn't there, but I can go back. I believe we still have those recordings, maybe.
Yeah.
But we'll have the minutes for sure. But we can go back and see. I think what you're outlining is ethical expectations.
Yeah.
In general. So that might be something that we can add more to the history.
Yeah.
Okay. We will add. Okay, any other additions, comments, things that should be changed? I know I have a few typos and dates that need to be changed. This is certainly not final by any means. This is why we presented it, several days ahead of time, but for the first time, and then we'll get data up to date. Anything else as I just cruise through that, that the commissioners want to update, change, recommend?
This is Murray. I like the idea of this being the first annual report being a historical document from the inceptions to June 30. Then the next one can be about the next biennium. But I think this is an important historical document.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing somehow in this, Rebecca, I think it should be noted that's that start time, the fall of 19, and our beginnings in the spring of 2020 that coincided with COVID and the pandemic.
Okay.
And then our turning around relative to the use of technology and that, it's good and bad. But I think it should be noted because that's also part of that history. And when we're talking about the timeline on cases and that, and of course the numbers bear that out too on that graphic. So yeah. Okay, this is due the end of the month, which is next Friday. We have our regular meeting, next Wednesday, the 27th. So when can we see a draft, Rebecca?
So I'm hoping by Friday you will all have
Okay.
a draft.
Okay.
It's Monday, so by Friday, maybe Thursday, depending on what other things come up this week. If it can stay quiet, then
Yeah, good. And then we would have to formally adopt or accept the final version then at the regular meeting?
Yes, and then after that, we will issue a press release and we will put it up on the website.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, so we're gonna have a weekend assignment. But it's very well done, Rebecca. I think you've captured most everything and yeah,
A lot of work.
yeah.
All right, well, I have my marching orders and my notes from the commission, so Addie and I will get to work this week on finalizing numbers and making changes.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on, the agenda, HR follow-up.
Cindy, do you want me to talk about this or do you want to take it?
Well, I think first you should maybe do a more public introduction of our new assistant, Addie, but welcome.
Yes. So I had emailed all of the commissioners, but we have Adeline, and I'm going to say Moose, but I know I don't say it right. Mose, thank you. I'm still learning, but she joined us just a few weeks ago. She is in this will be starting her 3rd week. So she's been with us for just 2 weeks. Our previous operations administrator, Alicia, has been training her at night, which is really great. We're getting Addie on board, walking her through all of the processes and procedures, but she comes to us. She has a background as a legal assistant, and we really appreciate that legal mindset. That is a crucial thing in our office. And so Logan and I have really both enjoyed getting to know Addie for short. And yes, she has the same initials as Alicia, AM. So if you see AM, that's not to be confused. It's also kind of convenient as well. But Adeline Mose has joined us, and we are really appreciative for all of her work. And we are excited to have her on board.
Yes, well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully you don't mind being thrown right into the fire.
I don't. I'm learning a lot.
Okay, good. All right, Rebecca, you want to go on?
Yeah, so the other HR follow-up that we have that the commission can speak about is at the last meeting, there was a recommendation that Chair Lindquist contact the Office of the Attorney General and have a meeting to set professional expectations and have really a good discussion with how we can move forward in a positive, collaborative fashion and having a good working relationship with their office. Cindy, you can probably talk more specifically about this. You were the one doing the communicating, but as I outlined in the memo, initially Attorney General Wrigley agreed to meet with the commission, but was not available on the dates that Chair Lindquist proposed. Chair Lindquist then asked the AG's office just to share his availability and so that we could accommodate that. But in response, the AG declined to meet, refused to meet with the commission until it responded to several letters or several different communications that their office has sent over the past, I would say, year and a half. And so that letter from the Attorney General to Chair Lindquist is attached to your materials. So Cindy, I guess I'll turn it over for you. That's just the facts that back up that section.
Yeah, I really don't have much more to add, other than we need to have further discussion. And however we're going to do that. Yeah. And his response to my email for an in-person meeting, the sequence of events, I think I got I got his response, I think it was on the 7th of August. And then we had that hearing on the 14th. So, yeah, but you can read his response in our materials.
Cynthia, this is Murray.
Yes.
If the commission decides to respond, I offer to begin drafting a response. And it won't be immediate because I have obligations for the next week, so I can't do it before August 27th, but I'm taking it, but among other things, I'm taking a 2-day cemetery tour up by Rugby. But I offer to try to draft a response for consideration by the commission.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Particularly, my perception of this letter and response from the Attorney General's office is essentially non-responsive unless we respond in writing. So yeah, let's prepare a response in writing. And I don't know, Ward or Ron, if you've got other comments on it. I'm hoping you've all read the letter.
Yes, I read the letter, and I think we need to respond in writing to keep the door open for an in-person meeting.
I agree, except I've given this some thought, and I'm just thinking that to respond to all that the Attorney General asked for is maybe more than we should do. That's not, I'm not saying that right, but let me get my thoughts together. You guys keep talking.
Yeah. Well, Murray, I would trust your instincts as to responding, and I think he notes the 2 other letters in that, and yeah, but I would welcome a written response.
Well, at least I can give you a draft, a partial draft. But I went back, and there's a December 12th, 2024 letter from the Attorney General, a January 13, 2025 testimony on House Bill 1360, a February 19 letter from Chief Deputy Attorney General Ness, a July 3 a letter to Executive Director Benstock, August 7 Attorney General letter to Chair Lindquist. And my sense was that none of them expected or requested a response. But and then when I reread all of them, and there are certain trends. So a draft response would not go letter by letter. I would tend to respond issue by issue. So
Yeah.
That's my thing. So because some issues run through all of the letters.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great if Maria would do that.
Cindy, I think I would just add that if there are facts or information that Murray needs, Logan, Addie, and I would certainly provide those or help him get the any materials that he would need. because I do think that there may be materials that may be needed.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But again, it is, as Murray said, it is not going to be a quick process. It's very time consuming.
I think there have been a number of issues raised, and I think the goal should be to not escalate the issues, but resolve the issues. And because both the Attorney General and the Ethics Commission have a lot of work to do. And the only way we can get it done is if we can cooperate and work together.
Yeah.
Here ends my comment for the day.
Well stated, Murray. All right. So Murray will draft a written response to the AG's most recent letter to me dated August 7th, but probably including the other correspondence. And I'll just leave it at that. Anything else under HR?
Nothing from Bismarck, Cindy.
Not for me.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Discussion of advisory opinions 25-05 and 25-06.
Oh, Cindy, did you jump over the discussion of Lafferty?
Oh, yes, I did. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna unmute Pat. Sure if Pat will have anything necessarily. Hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat.
You're muted.
So Pat, your computer is now muted, I think. Or let me check if it's, nope. While Pat unmutes herself and gets that taken care of, I can give just the commission an overview. So last week on August 14th, Special Assistant Attorney General Pat Munson, she did make a short presentation to the Legislative Audit and Fiscal Review Committee. Lafferty had requested, which is short, Lafferty is short for Legislative Audit and Fiscal Review Committee. They had requested that the commission provide information to that committee on what is outlined as complication 4 in the commission's report on Representative Jason Doctor's ethical issues. And so that report is dated May 27th of 2025. And on pages 86 and 87, we talk about some of the financial that we were never able to, with Pat taking the lead, Pat and Logan were never able to really determine what the scope of Representative Doctor's conflict was, because we didn't have a reconciliation or financial information on the Burlington building. So because Pat was the lead attorney on that case and conducted the investigation, we did have her present. I'd like her to just kind of give her comments. I will also share that Assistant Attorney General Mary Kay Kelsch and Laura Balliet, Assistant Attorneys General. Mary Kay Kelsch and Laura Balliet did provide information from the Attorney General's office that was helpful. Although they didn't present any documentation, which Pat can maybe touch on. But there was a letter and a slide deck that was submitted the day before the Lafferty hearing that was submitted to Lafferty by the Attorney General. I do want to just let the commission know that Assistant Attorney Generals that were present did not reference or use that material during their meeting. I did include the link for the commission, and I do want to encourage you guys to watch that recording, just what we presented. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Pat if she has anything to add for the commission.
Have you all seen the printed presentation, the written comments? I spoke from the presentation, delivered the printed remarks. The only deviation I made, I went through the questions, question number 1. But the only deviation I made was with respect to question number 2, and that had to do with the reconciliation. Because as Rebecca just referred to, the Attorney General had submitted a letter that as I referred to, contained, it wasn't directly to the point, it contained a lot of vitriol, and it accused the Executive Director and the Ethics Commission of submitting false information that was not based in fact, and claimed that there had been a reconciliation between Stealth and the Attorney General's office. We had learned the night before that, according to Stealth's attorney, there had not been a reconciliation. Yet the Attorney General submitted, based on nothing definitive or substantiated, that there had been a reconciliation. So I deviated my remarks from the printed information that we submitted, and I just told the committee that I believe that there had been no reconciliation, and that I believe that there couldn't have been a reconciliation because given what the finance director, Becky Keller, had testified to at the previous Lafferty committee meeting in December of 2024 or 2023, that there were far too many discrepancies in the invoices and other materials that had been submitted by Stealth to the Attorney General's office, that they couldn't commit to a decent reconciliation. And we think that is why those individuals from the Attorney General's office who were present at the committee meeting were not able, or would not, given their moral compasses, would not stand up and agree to the letter that Mr. Wrigley had submitted, even though they continued to press that there had been a reconciliation. At the conclusion of the hearing, after the individuals from the AG's office had spoken, and after there had been some questions and answers given, Chair Magrum said that he had the night before or the morning of, Rebecca, I don't remember, it was very close in time to the hearing, that he had spoken to the Stealth attorney, and he had confirmed that there had been no reconciliation. So the one, I think, major issue that the commission left undetermined, because we didn't have the information available to make a determination, and that was whether or not there had been a reconciliation of the costs, and that this committee was in the best position to determine whether or not there had been state authorized expenditure of funds, and whether or not there was money still owing to the state. I believe that that committee found that there needed to be further investigation into this. There was some discussion among the committee members, and there was an anticipated vote as to whether or not they were going to do another vote for an investigation. And they decided to wait until the Attorney General's office presented to the committee at its December 2025 meeting what they called a reconciliation. So apparently they are in a position to do a reconciliation and present that to the committee at its December meeting, the Lafferty committee in December. So be anxious to see what in fact is presented. It should have been done back in 2022, the end of 2022. In 2023, the finance director at the AG's office said that she would not do one because she didn't believe she could. So we'll see what happens 3 years later, and whether or not they can in fact reconcile the costs and what, if anything, is still owing to the AG's office, to the state. They claim that there were no unauthorized payments made in the letter that Wrigley submitted to the committee. He claims that he was a whistleblower. He continues to use the term whistleblower. If you have a duty to report any wrongdoing, you are not a whistleblower. That is one of your duties. That is your responsibility. Wrigley and no member of his staff is a whistleblower. No state employee is a whistleblower if they have an obligation to make a report such as this. So again, I think that the language that he used in the letter that he submitted to Lafferty, the language that he has been using in his correspondence to the commission is incendiary. It certainly doesn't lead to placating whatever the issues are. I think that Commissioner Sogsveen's approach to this letter is it warrants some very strong considerations that this matter be put to rest, and that a common ground be found in dealing with the AG's office, and hopefully there can be some dousing of the flames and the name calling coming from his office, because that needs to stop. And one of the things that came out of the Lafferty meeting was a question from Representative Schauer, who sits on this committee, about the inappropriate language used by Attorney General Wrigley in the letter that was submitted, and references being made to the Ethics Commission, which I said I agreed was uncalled for, and no way for two state agencies to deal with one another, particularly coming from the chief law enforcement officer in the state of North Dakota. That is no way for him to be addressing this commission, and that needed to stop. And hopefully some accord can be reached where he agrees and starts to treat the staff with the deference that it deserves. So I think that was the upshot of that meeting. I think that the committee understood that there was no reconciliation that was made, and that it now has taken over responsibility for determining whether or not there are state funds or there's money still owed to the state based on this this construction project that was very unusual right from the very beginning. Any questions?
I want to tell you, Pat, I watched that presentation. I watched your presentation in particular, and I thought you did a very, very good job representing us.
Thank you, Judge. I've been at this for a while, you know.
I know. Well, I appreciated your work on our behalf.
Well, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy doing the work for this commission because I like the work that it does. I believe that it's necessary, and I primarily enjoy working with Rebecca and Logan. They are great individuals. They do great work, and as I told the committee, the state is lucky to have them, and so is this commission. Very lucky to have them. They're first-rate lawyers.
I agree.
Yes. Well, Pat, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us for our meeting today. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can read the materials in that, but just having, the face and that interaction and perspective, it's greatly appreciated. And as the chair of the commission, I really appreciate your the work you've done for the Ethics Commission, because I know it's been a lot of work.
I've enjoyed
But I
it.
also know, you know, all the back, you know, the details and stuff, and then just making sure that we know what we need to know in that. So it's been excellent work on our behalf. So thank you so much for being part of this team.
Very welcome. It's a great way to finish up my career. I have to tell you, it's been wonderful. So I appreciate being part of the team. So, and anytime you need help, I mean, I can't give you legal advice, but I can.
Did you give up your license?
I just retired. It's inactive.
Okay.
It's inactive, but I can pull it out of inactive status anytime.
That's my situation too.
Yeah. I can still help with some things. So Murray, if you need help with that letter, give me a holler.
Certainly.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Before we move on now to the advisory opinions, I think we should take a 5-10 minute break. Okay, so I have 10:22, so we'll reconvene at 10:30.
That was
8-minute break. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Maintenance break, good one. All right, see you in 10 minutes.